In light of the fact confirmed by CSIS, I have instructed my deputy minister to summon the Chinese ambassador. That is what he's doing as we speak.
You have given accreditation to a diplomat here who is using his diplomatic immunity to target not just me and my family, but other members of parliament. So why do you, Minister, continue to allow this diplomat to be accredited in this country on Canadian soil?
We're assessing the consequences that we'll be facing in case of diplomatic expulsion, because there will be consequences.
Welcome back to a special edition of Power Play. I'm Vassy Kapelos in downtown Ottawa. If you hear that beautiful sound behind me, it's because we're here at the Liberal Convention and there are some sound checks going on. So my apologies if it's distracting at all. What you heard there out of the commercial break was some of the back and forth that occurred between Tory MP Michael Chong and Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly earlier today, when the Foreign Affairs Minister announced that she was summoning the Chinese ambassador in response to what Beijing did in targeting Michael Chong and his family back in 2021. However, the minister stopped short of saying that she plans to expel the diplomat, the Chinese diplomat here in Canada, who is implicated in the targeting of Michael Chong and his family. She said that they were assessing the consequences of doing so. I've got a special edition of the Front Bench panel here to talk a little bit about that. And of course, the convention with me this evening, Sabrina Grover. She was a federal Liberal candidate in the 2021 election. She's now a principal at Shakti Strategies. Fred Delory is the former director of political operations for Prime Minister Stephen Harper and was the 2021 Conservative National Campaign Manager. He's now managing partner with Delory Public Affairs. Kathleen Monk is the former director of strategic communications to the late Jack Layton. She's now the principal owner of Monk and Associates. And Laura Stone is a Queen's Park reporter for the Globe and Mail. Hi, everybody. Good to have you with us tonight. Sabrina, I'm going to start with you on this. It has been heating up all week, but today it really sort of reached, I think, an inflection point. I can't imagine that the government is going to be able to hesitate much longer to expel this diplomat, especially when we hear from Michael Chong that CSIS has confirmed to him that that diplomat was involved specifically in targeting him.
I think you're right, Vassy, and I think that more than that, it's no longer just a story that's kind of bubbling in the Ottawa bubble, should we say. I think it's something that's starting to take attention with more and more Canadians. And I think what's more important about this issue is it's not really just a political issue. It looks like now it's very much a systemic issue, and that a lot of the problems run much deeper than what I think we maybe had anticipated. I think the government has generally tried to be forthcoming. I think that they've maybe stumbled along the way, and I think there's been a lot of issues in being kind of clear on message or being able to really direct the attention here. I think that they've done what they can to this point, but I agree with you. I think they need to be a little bit more decisive in their action.
It was kind of remarkable today, Fred, to see the actual sort of, target of Beijing, Michael Chong, questioning and going back and forth with the Foreign Affairs Minister, like live before Canadians, right? And the reasoning that the minister gave for waiting to expel, that they're assessing the consequences, I thought was, it's sort of telling. Like, I think that's incumbent on governments to do that kind of stuff. But if they targeted a sitting member of Parliament, should the weight I think I said to the minister, should the punishment fit the crime rather than just be based on the potential consequences?
It was astounding to see Minister Joly say that today. I was stunned when I saw that. It's been 4 days since this story broke, and what are we assessing? If this person did this, if CSIS has said this, Mr. Chong has now confirmed it, why is this person still in the country? But for Minister Joly to put her lines about how we have to assess what China's reaction is going to be. It should be, what is our reaction? Are we a real country? Are we a G7 country or not? We should be leaders in the world. We tried to pretend we are at times, but right now it doesn't look like we are when we're afraid to expel a diplomat for interfering like this and threatening Canadians.
Also, like Kathleen, breaking news, China's going to retaliate. Like, yeah,
right,
I think we're intimately familiar with that already, right? Like, what's left to assess?
Exactly, and we saw how Canadians, general Canadians who might not be tuned into politics, but they did tune into the story of the two Michaels, and they don't like to see when other foreign countries, basically, impact Canadian families, and that's what's happening here. And so I think the risk for Minister Joly, and by extension, certainly the Prime Minister, is that they're not standing up for Canadians, whether it's MP Chong or whether it's a civilian, someone who's not elected to Parliament. I think the danger really is that we want to see our foreign minister react quickly, and I think the most devastating blow today that happened was actually in committee, although question period was pretty raucous today too with the questions, was when Michael Chong said to the minister, we are the only G7 nation who has failed to expel. Why aren't we expelling? And I think that will penetrate to general Canadians and say, yeah, why aren't we standing up to these bullies? When bullies act this way, we should retaliate.
I mean, Laura, we're a political panel, and often when we talk about foreign interference, we're talking about to what degree are people outside of this bubble, this literal bubble that we're in here on the stage, thinking about this. And I think Sabrina makes a good point, and our other panelists, in that when we're talking about like the targeting of Michael, and not just Michael Chong, his family, right? Putting aside the politics of whose party he belongs to or whose party the Prime Minister belongs to, like, I think people have a human reaction to that, and as a result, you know, it becomes a bigger political vulnerability for the Prime Minister the more they wait to react.
Yes, for sure. I mean, first of all, I just want to say I have serious FOMO seeing you guys all there at the convention, and I wish I was there with you. But
we miss you.
I do think this story resonates on a number of levels. One, because the government has essentially confirmed the story. So much of these China stories and reporting that we've seen is a lot of unnamed sources and sort of a back and forth between the government and others on what's accurate and what's not. This is essentially, the details are out there and no one is really denying the essence of the story. So in that sense, it's easy for Canadians to understand. And exactly, on a human level, I mean, we all get it, right? You know, we're not talking about secret committees, and there's not many machinations here that are sort of above people's heads. We get the concept of an MP being targeted and Canada not having done anything about it. And it is really astounding that the government has come out and said, essentially, we only found out about this on Monday. From a newspaper, and you know, there's a lot of questions about why this didn't make its way up the chain. You know, if it did, what happened? And so I think, you know, the government has been completely flat-footed on this issue, and I think that's why you saw Minister Jolie today kind of working out in public. As I said earlier on your show, on your radio show, Vassy, she said the quiet part out loud in committee about what these consequences might be. So they're just dealing with it in real time as it's happening.